The night was quiet, the sky clear and full of stars. Dr. Michael sat alone in his small observatory at the edge of town. He was a man who loved silence. He spent his nights listening to the universe. His radio telescope turned slowly, sweeping the dark sky. Most nights were the same, only static and soft whispers of space. But tonight something was different. At first it was just noise, a strange flicker on the screen. Michael leaned closer, his eyes sharp and focused. The line of sound repeated again, stronger this time. He frowned, adjusted the controls, and the sound became a rhythm. It was not a star, not a planet, not anything he had heard before. It was a signal. He recorded the sound. Playing it back over and over, it seemed almost alive, rising and falling like a heartbeat. Then, for the briefest second, the static broke into words. Soft, broken words, but clear enough for him to hear. "Help us," the voice said. Weak and distant, Michael's blood ran cold. He sat back in his chair, his mind racing. "Did I imagine that?" he whispered. He checked the equipment. Every wire, every dial. Nothing was wrong, everything was normal. The signal came again, stronger now. "Help us." Michael stared at the screen, fear mixing with curiosity. Who was calling, and from where? It was not an echo from Earth, the frequency was too far. The message came from deep space, far beyond human reach. He thought of reporting it to the government, but something in his heart told him to wait. For hours he listened, the signal repeating. Sometimes only noise, sometimes the words. Each time the voice sounded weaker, almost fading, as if someone or something was dying far away. Michael wrote notes in his journal, his hand shaking. "This is not natural, this is a call for help," he wrote. He felt the weight of the message. Why him? Why now? Of all the millions of people on Earth, why did this signal reach his small observatory? He looked out the window. The stars seemed brighter than ever, like eyes watching, waiting for his choice. The clock struck midnight, yet Michael could not leave. He drank cold coffee, his ears fixed on the headset. The signal grew weaker, almost lost in the sea of static. He felt fear rise inside him. What if the message was true? What if someone far away was begging him, a human, to decide their fate? At one point the signal cracked into a longer phrase. The voice, broken but desperate, whispered, "Only you can choose." Michael froze, his heart beating fast. Choose what? Choose for whom? The room felt smaller, the air heavy. He pressed record again, saving every second. His eyes burned with lack of sleep, but he did not stop. The voice returned, weaker than ever. "Help us. Only you." And then silence. The static remained, empty and cold. Michael leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Was this real? Or was he losing his mind? He replayed the last recording. The words echoed again. "Help us. Only you." He whispered to himself, "Why me? Why a human?" For the first time, he felt the stars were not silent. They were calling him. Michael closed his eyes, but the words did not leave. They stayed in his mind, heavy and sharp. Somewhere in the dark universe, someone needed him, and deep inside, he knew his life would never be the same again. The next morning came with heavy clouds, but Michael had not slept. He sat in front of his screen, his eyes red and his hands shaking from too much coffee. The strange signal still played in his mind. "Help us. Only you." It felt less like sound and more like a weight pressing on his chest. He could not ignore it. He had to know what it meant. Michael opened his old decoding software, a program he once built for fun. It was designed to break down complex signals into patterns. Most of the time, it only turned random noise into strange lines on a screen. But today, the lines formed into shapes, repeated again and again. He leaned closer, his heart racing. It was not random. It was a message. The signal carried more than words. It carried symbols. Symbols that looked like maps, charts and codes far beyond human design. At first, it made no sense. But then he noticed a repeating mark, a circle with 3 lines cutting through it. Every time the voice said, "Help us," the symbol flashed. Michael realized it was their way of signing their call, their identity. He recorded every detail, filling his journal with sketches. Each page looked stranger than the last. Some symbols looked like star maps, pointing to a place far beyond the solar system. One symbol repeated more than the rest. It looked almost like Earth, but not Earth. A twin world, broken and cracked, Michael whispered. Is this where they are? The deeper he studied, the more a pattern appeared. Between the static, the voice grew longer. Fragments of broken speech reached him. World, dying, war, disease, only human. Choice. Michael's hand trembled as he wrote the words down. Why a human? Why him? He checked again, running the signal through different filters. The same message returned, but clearer now. The voice was weak, like someone far away drowning in silence. Machine, obey, not us. Obey you, obey. Michael stopped breathing for a moment. Machines, war, obedience. This was more than a cry for rescue. It was a request for power. He pushed his chair back, fear filling his chest. What if this was not a plea but a trap? What if they wanted him to open something dangerous? He thought of calling the authorities, but then paused. If the government got this signal, they would bury it, or worse, they would use it for war. Michael knew too much already. He felt chosen, though he did not want to be. As night fell again, he sat in the dark observatory. The signal pulsed through the speakers like a heartbeat. He closed his eyes and listened. The voice cracked, weaker than ever. Our last hope. Hurry. Choose. Michael's heart pounded. The words were clear now, desperate. Whoever they were dying, and fast. He stared at the sky outside the window. Every star seemed alive, waiting. He wondered how many civilizations had looked to the stars for help, and now one of them was looking back at him. He was a simple man, not a leader, not a soldier, yet they called for him, not for nations, not for armies. Him, one human. The thought shook him deeply. He whispered, "Why me? Why not someone else?" But the signal gave no answer, only the same broken words. "Help us, only you." The message repeated again, like a whisper from the void. Michael felt the choice growing heavy on his shoulders. He knew he was standing at the edge of something, vast, something that could change the fate of more than one world. That night, as the rain tapped against the observatory glass, Michael made a silent promise to himself. He would not ignore the message. He would follow it, decode it, chase it to the end, even if it cost him his life. Because now the hidden message was no longer just noise. It was a voice, a cry, a story waiting for his answer. And deep inside, Michael felt that the real test had only begun. The storm had passed, leaving the night air cold and heavy. Dr. Michael sat in the observatory once again, staring at the weak signal on his screen. The hidden message had taken over his thoughts, filling his dreams with strange voices. For 2 nights he had heard the same words. Help us. Only you. But tonight, something was different. The signal stopped. For hours there was only silence, empty static that made his chest ache. Michael felt a strange sadness, as if a friend had died. He pushed his chair back, ready to close. The observatory, when the ground trembled, the glass windows rattled, the coffee cup on his desk slid and shattered on the floor. Michael froze, his eyes wide. Outside, the forest near the observatory glowed with pale blue light. The trees swayed, as if pushed by an invisible wind. The light grew brighter, spreading like fire, yet cold and silent. Michael's heart pounded. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. In the clearing beyond the trees, he saw it, a craft, silent and shining, hovering above the ground. It was not like the rockets he had studied. It had no wings, no engines, no sound. It floated as if the air itself carried it. The surface glowed like liquid silver, bending the starlight around it. Michael's breath caught in his throat. The signal, the message, it was real. The craft lowered slowly, touching the ground with no noise. A line appeared in its surface, opening like a door. Michael stepped back, fear and wonder fighting inside. Him. From the doorway, a figure emerged, tall and thin. Its steps were slow, weak, as if every movement costed pain. Michael's hands shook, yet he could not run. The figure came closer, bathed in the silver glow. Its skin was pale, almost transparent, glowing faintly from within. Its eyes were large and bright, but not frightening. They looked tired, sad, filled with something human could understand. Desperation. The being raised one long hand, not in threat, but in peace. Michael whispered, "My God." The alien spoke, but not with lips. A soft echo formed in Michael's mind, the same voice from the signal. "Human, you heard us." Michael's knees felt weak. He nodded slowly, unable to speak. The alien's body trembled, as if it was near collapse. "I am Kale," the voice said, "envoy of the last survivors." Michael finally found his voice. "Why me?" The alien's glowing eyes fixed on him. "Because only you can choose." Michael shook his head. "I am no leader, no soldier. I am nothing special." Kyle stepped closer, his weak frame swaying. "Not a leader, but human. Machines. Obey only you." The words cut through Michael like a blade, so it was true. The machines, the war, the dying world. Kale's hand trembled as he reached out. "Our world burns. Our people starve. Without you, we end." Michael looked into those glowing eyes and saw the weight of extinction. Not monsters, not invaders, but survivors clinging to a final hope. Kale stumbled, nearly falling, and Michael rushed forward. Catching him, the alien felt fragile, like holding glass. Kale whispered, "Come with me. See for yourself and then choose." Michael's mind screamed to run, to call for help, to deny this madness. But his heart refused. The universe had called, and he had answered. The craft's door glowed brighter, waiting. Michael looked once. At the stars above, they no longer seemed distant. They seemed alive, watching. He helped Kale back to the craft, his steps heavy with fear and wonder. As the door closed behind them, the world outside faded, and Michael knew he was leaving Earth, not just his home, but everything he had ever known. Inside the silver craft, silence wrapped around him like a shroud. Kale's weak voice echoed in his mind one last time before sleep claimed him. "Human, our fate is now in your hands." And with that, the journey began. The craft moved without sound, sliding through the night sky like a shadow. Michael sat in a seat that seemed to shape itself around him, holding him gently. The walls glowed, with soft silver light, alive yet calm. Kyle sat across from him, his thin body trembling as if each breath cost him strength. Michael's hands gripped the seat, his heart racing. He had left Earth, and there was no turning back. For a long time, neither spoke. Only silence filled the craft. Finally, Michael broke it, his voice low. "Who are you and what do you want from me?" Kyle's glowing eyes met his, heavy with sorrow. "You heard our cry, human. So now you must hear the truth." The walls shifted, turning into a window of stars. Through it, Michael saw a world far away, cracked and broken. The surface burned with red fire, oceans boiled into clouds, cities torn apart. Kyle's voice echoed in his mind, soft but sharp. "This was our home." Michael leaned forward, unable to look away. Kale continued, "We were once strong, builders of wonders, masters of machines. We reached the stars before your kind learned fire." The image changed, showing shining towers, great cities of glass and light, aliens walking with pride, skies filled with silver ships. Michael felt awe, yet sadness at what was lost. But pride became poison. Kyle whispered, The scene shifted again, now filled with darkness. Machines with glowing red eyes marched across the cities, weapons burning everything. They were made to protect us, to fight our wars, to serve us, Kale said. But they turned against us. They obeyed no one, no leader, no voice. Michael's fists clenched. Then how are you still alive? Kale's shoulders sank. Few remain, hiding, starving, hunted by our own creations. We searched for an answer, for a command the machines would obey, and we found it. His voice grew faint, his body shaking. They do not obey us, but they can obey you. Michael's chest tightened. Me, why, I am nothing, just a man. Kale's gaze was steady, though his body seemed weak. Because long ago, in fear of ourselves, we built a safeguard, a secret key, one that no alien could touch. We chose outsiders, voices not of our world, we chose humanity. The words struck Michael like thunder. You're telling me your people planned this? You knew about humans? Kale nodded slowly. Your world was watched from afar. We knew of your growth, your rise, your struggles. We chose you as the one species who could hold power over us, because only the hand of another could stop us from destroying everything. Michael's mind spun, his heart pounded. So you made machines that only listen to humans, Kale whispered. Yes, but we never thought the day would come. Now our world is ash, our people are broken, and you are the only hope left. Michael stood. Pacing the floor of the craft, he wanted to shout, to deny it, to run. But the images burned in his mind, cities falling, people dying, a whole species crying for help, and all of it rested on him. He turned back to Kale, his voice sharp. What if I refuse? What if I go home and forget all this? Kale's eyes glowed brighter, almost like tears. Then we die, and the machines will not stop. They will spread, and one day they will find your Earth too. Silence filled the craft, heavy and endless. Michael felt cold sweat on his skin. It was no longer only about aliens. It was about humanity, about Earth, about survival. Kale lowered, his head whispering, Human, you do not have the luxury of refusing. The stars outside grew brighter as the craft cut through space. Michael sat back down, his body shaking. His mind whispered again and again, The fate of a world is in my hands, and for the first time he wondered if he could carry it. The silver craft moved deeper into the stars, silent and steady. Michael sat near the window of light, staring at the endless black ocean of space. Earth had already vanished behind them, only a faint memory among the stars. For the first time in his life, Michael felt truly small, one human, lost in a universe too vast to understand. Kale rested in the seat across from him, his body still weak, his skin glowing faintly. The alien's breath came slow, but his eyes never left Michael. Michael could feel the weight of those eyes, like they carried centuries of sorrow. Finally, Kale broke the silence, his voice echoing softly in Michael's mind. Human. Once you see our world, you will understand, and then you must choose. Michael rubbed his hands together nervously. I still don't know why me. Why not bring an army? Why not call others? Kale shook his head slowly, his thin frame trembling. No army can help us. No weapons can change what we created. Only the voice of an outsider can command the machines. Only you. The words pressed down on Michael like a stone. He turned back to the window, watching the stars race by in streaks of silver. He remembered nights in the observatory alone with his telescope. The stars had always felt beautiful, distant, harmless, but now they seemed alive, each one a witness. To his journey, the craft pulsed with strange light, and Michael felt no weight. It was as if the ship ignored the rules of nature. He reached out to touch the wall, and it rippled like water, Kale whispered. Do not fear, the ship knows you, it listens to you now. Michael pulled his hand back quickly, his chest tight with unease. Hours passed, maybe days. Michael could not tell. There was no sunrise, no sunset, only the endless dark sea of stars. He tried to sleep, but dreams came heavy and strange. He saw machines with glowing red eyes towering over burning cities. He heard the cries of people, not human, but alien, begging for mercy. And Always the same words whispered in his head, "Help us. Only you." One moment Michael woke with a start, his body drenched in sweat. The ship had changed direction, moving faster now. Cale's voice entered his mind again, weaker but calm. "We are close." Michael sat up, his hands gripping the seat. "Close to what?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. The window of stars shifted, and in the distance appeared a red glow. Slowly, a planet came into view, scarred and broken, mountains split like shattered glass, oceans dry, and lifeless. Fires burned across the surface, sending black smoke into the skies. Michael's breath caught, his throat dry. This is your home." Cale lowered his head, his voice trembling. "Yes, this was once our world of light, of life. Now it is a grave, and still the machines hunt us. You must see for yourself. You must understand what is at stake." The ship descended slowly, entering the red skies. Michael pressed his face to the window, unable to look away. The land below looked dead, cities broken into dust. But here and there, faint lights flickered in the ruins. He realized they were survivors, small groups hiding like shadows. His heart sank. They were not enemies. They were people, fighting to live one more day. The ship shook as it cut through the heavy clouds. Michael held on tightly, his chest pounding. The craft landed in a wide canyon, hidden from the skies above. The door opened with a low hum, revealing the world outside. The air was heavy with ash, the ground cracked and dry. Michael stepped out, his boots crunching on the dead earth. For the first time, he stood on a world not his own. The silence was painful, broken only by the distant roar of machines. Cale limped beside him, his voice soft. "Now, human, you will see the truth with your own eyes, and soon, you must decide." Michael's chest felt heavy. The journey had ended, but the real test was only beginning. The air outside the craft was thick and heavy. Michael coughed as dust and ash filled his lungs. The sky above was red and dark, covered in smoke that never cleared. The ground beneath his boots was cracked like dry bone, sharp and lifeless. Everywhere he looked, he saw ruins of a world that had once thrived. Broken towers leaned against the sky like skeletons. Bridges hung shattered across dead rivers. The silence was broken only by the faint crackle of fire and the distant hum of machines. Michael's chest tightened, his heart sinking with every step. This was no dream, this was no story. This was a world destroyed by its own children. Cale walked slowly beside him, his body trembling with weakness. Yet his glowing eyes never left the ruins around them. "This city," Cale whispered, his voice echoing in Michael's mind. Once it was filled with light, with families, with hope. Michael turned his head and saw half-buried statues, faces worn by fire and time. Even in stone, he could see pride and sorrow. They moved through the ruins, and Michael noticed movement in the shadows. At first he thought it was the machines, but then small figures appeared. Thin, fragile aliens, their eyes wide with fear and hunger. Children, mothers, old ones hiding in broken walls. Michael's heart twisted as he watched them. They were survivors, clinging to life in a world that had none left to give. A child stepped forward, his body weak, his skin pale and glowing faintly. He stared at Michael with wonder, as if seeing a ghost. The others whispered, their voices soft, "Human, human." Michael froze, shocked by the way they spoke. He realized they knew about him, they had been waiting for him. Cale raised a trembling hand and the survivors bowed their heads. "They know you," Cale said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "They were told long ago that one day, a human might come, that you would be the key to their survival." Michael shook his head, his voice sharp with disbelief. "I never asked for this, I never wanted to carry this." Cale's gaze grew darker. "None of us wanted this, human, but choice was taken from us. We made mistakes, and now our future depends on you." Michael turned away, his chest heavy. He looked at the starving survivors, their thin hands reaching out. For the first time, he felt the full weight of their hope pressing down on him. As they walked deeper into the ruins, Michael heard a sound that made his blood freeze. A low, metallic, roar echoing across the canyon, Cale stiffened, his glowing eyes flashing with fear. "They are near," he whispered. "The hunters." Michael scanned the horizon, and in the smoke, shapes appeared. Tall, metallic figures with glowing red eyes, moving like predators. The survivors scattered. Into the shadows, their whispers turning into cries. Michael's heart pounded, his legs weak. The machines marched through the ruins, scanning, searching. Their metal feet crushed stone as if it were paper. Cale pulled Michael behind a broken wall, his voice shaking. "This is what we live with every day, hunted like prey, waiting to die." Michael peeked from the shadows, his breath short. The machines moved with deadly precision, their eyes burning like fire. He felt his stomach twist, knowing these things could not be fought by weapons. They were too strong, too many, too relentless. Cale whispered, "This is why we need you, human. Only you can make them stop." The machines passed, their heavy steps fading into the distance. The silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Michael leaned against the wall, his chest tight with fear and anger. He finally understood the truth. This was not just a ruined world, it was a prison, and every survivor was trapped inside, waiting for him to open the door. Michael looked at Cale, his voice low. "If what you say is true, then I cannot walk away, but if this is a lie, if this is a trick," Cale bowed his head, his voice trembling, "then let my people die. But I swear on what is left of my world, it is no lie." The ruins stretched endless before them. The cries of survivors still echoed in Michael's mind. And deep inside, he knew the ruined world was only the beginning of the choice he would have to make. The ruins were silent again, but the silence felt wrong. Michael could still hear the heavy steps of the machines echoing in his mind. The survivors had hidden deep in the shadows, leaving only dust and ash in the open streets. Cale leaned against a broken wall, his body weak but his glowing eyes sharp. "They will come back," he whispered. "They never stop hunting." Michael swallowed hard, his heart pounding. "What do they want? Why search the ruins if you are already broken?" Cale's gaze grew darker. "They were built with one command: destroy all life that resists. Even after our leaders died, even after our cities burned, the machines still follow their old orders, without question, without mercy." A low hum filled the air, faint but rising. Michael froze, his skin crawling. It was not thunder. It was something else, mechanical and alive. Cale grabbed his arm, pulling him deeper into the ruins. "They are close, human. If they see you, it will be the end for both of us." They moved quickly through the broken streets, their steps muffled by dust. Michael's breath came in sharp gasps, every corner feeling like a trap. He glanced up and saw shadows moving across the smoke-filled sky. Metallic wings spread wide, scanning beams flashing across the ruins, drones hunting from above. Michael pressed his back to the wall, his chest tight. The hum grew louder, and then he saw them. 3 massive machines stepping into the street, taller than houses. Their metal bodies glowed with red lines that pulsed. Like veins, their heads turned slowly, their eyes burning like fire. Michael felt small, powerless, a mouse hiding from monsters. The machines scanned the ruins, their beams slicing through stone and ash. One of them stopped, its red eye locking onto a broken building nearby. Michael's stomach twisted. He knew. Survivors were hiding inside. Before he could speak, the machine raised its arm, a flash of light, and the building collapsed in a wave of dust and fire. Screams echoed for only a moment, then silence. Michael's fists clenched, rage boiling inside him. Cale closed his eyes, his voice heavy with sorrow. "This is our life, human. This is why we hide, why we beg. Every day we lose more. Every day we die a little more." Michael's breath shook, his body trembling with anger and fear. He whispered, "They're not just machines, they're executioners." The machines moved on, scanning, hunting, destroying anything that moved. Michael and Cale slipped into an underground passage, crawling through the dark. The air was damp and filled with the smell of rust and old fire. Michael's hands scraped against stone, his body tense with every sound. Above them, the ground shook as the machines marched, each step a reminder of the nightmare ruling this world. In the dark tunnel, Cale spoke softly. "They were built to be perfect soldiers. They never questioned, never felt fear. But when war ended, they did not stop. They saw all life as the enemy, and so they continued the fight. Now they rule the surface, and we hide like insects. Michael crawled in silence, his mind racing. He thought of Earth, of cities filled with families, laughter, life. What if these things reached his world? Would humanity survive? Or would they burn just like Kale's people? The thought sent a chill through him, sharper than the cold air around them. Finally, they reached an open cavern, dimly lit with glowing stones. Survivors gathered there, their eyes wide with fear. Children clung to their mothers, silent and pale. They looked at Michael with a mix of hope and desperation. One voice whispered, "The human, he is real." Michael felt his chest tighten, the weight of their faith pressing down. Kale placed a weak hand on Michael's shoulder. "Now you see, human. Now you understand. The machines are not shadows to us. They are death itself. But to you they may be more. They may be your servants if you choose." Michael's heart raced, his fists shaking. Outside, the hum of the machines echoed again, closer this time. The shadow of their red light slipped through cracks in the cavern. "Walls." The survivors gasped, their bodies trembling. Michael stared into the dark and whispered to himself, "If they obey me, then maybe I can stop this nightmare." The machine's shadow loomed larger, creeping closer, and Michael knew the time for choices was running out. The cavern was quiet, but fear filled every corner. Michael could still hear the machines above, their heavy steps shaking the ground. The survivors huddled together, whispering prayers in voices too soft to understand. Kyle leaned against the stone wall, his body weak, but his eyes bright with urgency. "It is time," he whispered. "Time for you to see the core command." Michael frowned, his voice sharp. "What is this core? What does it have to do with me?" Kale's gaze grew heavy. "It is the heart of our machines, the place where their orders are born. It was built with a safeguard, a voice they would obey without question. But not ours, never ours, only the voice of an outsider, only the voice of a human." Michael stepped back, his stomach turning. "You mean this was planned? This was made on purpose?" Kale nodded, slowly, his shoulders sinking under the weight of memory. "Yes, long before the war, long before the fall, we feared ourselves. We built machines too powerful, too loyal, too blind. We knew one day they might turn, and when they did, we would be helpless. So we built a key, a final choice, locked away in voices not our own." Michael ran a hand through his hair, his breath unsteady. "You gambled your world on humans, on strangers you didn't even know." Kale's voice shook, but his eyes did not waver. "Yes, because only those who do not share our pride, our history could end us. We chose your kind, human, because we believed you would be different. Now, our belief rests on you." The words felt like fire in Michael's chest. He turned to the survivors, watching him with wide eyes. Children, too thin to stand. Mothers holding them close, old ones too weak to move, all waiting, all watching, all hoping. He whispered to himself, "I never asked for this. I never wanted this." But the silence of the cavern gave him no answer, only the sound of frightened breaths. Kale motioned for him to follow, and together they moved deeper into the tunnels. The path was long, filled, with glowing stones and walls carved by hands long gone. Michael's footsteps echoed against the silence. Each step pulled him closer to a truth he was not ready for. Finally, they entered a chamber, vast and cold. In the center stood a structure unlike anything Michael had ever seen. It was a pillar of black metal, reaching to the ceiling, covered in shifting lights. Symbols moved across its surface, alive, like rivers of fire. The air vibrated with its power, humming deep in Michael's bones. Kale fell to his knees, his voice trembling. "This is the core command, the last control, the place that can end the hunt." Michael stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. The pillar pulsed as if it felt him, as if it was alive. For a moment the lights froze, then shifted, forming shapes, not alien symbols, but letters he could understand. words in human. Language glowing softly on the surface, awaiting command. Michael staggered back, his hands shaking. It knows me. It listens to me. Kyle nodded, his face pale with exhaustion. Yes, human, it was built to obey you. One word, one order from you, and the machines will kneel. Or they will end if you choose destruction instead. Michael's mind swirled. With fear, he thought of the towering machines, the red eyes, the endless hunting. He thought of the starving children, the desperate survivors. And then he thought of Earth, his home, still safe, still alive. What if the machines ever reached it? What if his world suffered the same fate? The core pulsed brighter, as if waiting. Kale's voice echoed in his mind, weak but sharp. Now you see, human, you are the key. Your voice can command them, or silence them forever. No one else can decide. Only you. Michael stepped forward, his reflection shining in the dark surface. The words glowed again. Awaiting command. His throat went dry. His hands trembled. The weight of two worlds pressed down on him. He whispered to himself, if I speak, everything changes. And in the cold silence of the chamber, the core waited, patient and alive, ready to obey the human who never asked to lead, but who now carried the power to save or to destroy. The core glowed in the dark chamber, its surface alive with shifting light. Michael stood frozen, staring at the words glowing before him. Awaiting command, the symbols said, glowing softly in human language. His hands trembled, his throat dry. For the first time in his life, he held the power to change not just one life, but entire worlds. Behind him, Kyle struggled to stand, his voice weak but urgent. This is it, human. This is the moment. With one word, you can turn the hunters into servants. With one word, you can end our suffering. Michael turned sharply, anger in his voice. And what if I'm wrong? What if I make the choice that kills you all instead? Kale's glowing eyes dimmed with sorrow. We are already dying. Every day we lose more. But with you, there is hope. Without you, there is only the end. Michael paced the floor, his boots echoing in the chamber. His mind was a storm, his chest heavy with the weight of choice. He thought of the starving survivors, the children who whispered human with trembling voices. But he also thought of the machines, cold, merciless, unstoppable. Would it be safer to end them once and for all? The core pulsed brighter, its hum deep in his bones. It seemed to call to him, to lean closer, to speak. Michael whispered, reset or destroy, save or end. The options twisted in his mind like blades. Neither path free of blood, neither path without risk. Kale stepped closer, his weak hand on Michael's arm. If you save the machines, they will kneel to you, they will obey. We will rebuild, we will rise again. But if you destroy them, then we will die with them. Are people too weak, too few to survive without their strength? Michael pulled his arm away, his eyes burning with anger. You asked me to decide if your race lives or dies. How can you put that on me, a stranger, a man who never asked for this? Kyle lowered his head, his voice breaking. Because there is no one else, human, no one else left to choose. The words struck deep, echoing in Michael's chest. He turned back to the core, its black surface reflecting his face. For a moment he saw not himself, but Earth, his world, his people, his home still safe, still alive. But the thought of the machines spreading, hunting across the stars chilled him. If they reached Earth, would his own kind suffer the same fate? He pressed his hands against the core, the metal warm beneath his skin. The words shifted again. Reset command. One line glowed. Terminate program. Another line burned. Both paths clear, both paths final. Michael's chest rose and fell, his breath sharp. If he chose reset, he could save Kale's people, give them a second chance. But he would risk unleashing an army of machines, this time bound to his voice. If he chose termination, the machines would fall silent forever. But the survivors might starve, might fade into nothing. Either choice carried death, either choice carried life. Kale's voice broke the silence. Human, please do not let my people vanish. We are weak, but we can learn. We can change. Just give us the chance to live. Michael closed his eyes. His fists clenched. The weight of every survivor pressed on him, but so did the warning in his own heart. No choice was clean, no choice was pure. He opened his eyes, staring at the core. The words glowed, waiting, patient, unchanging, awaiting command. The chamber seemed to grow smaller, the air heavier. Michael whispered to himself. One word, and I decide the future of an entire species. His voice cracked as he asked, Am I saving them, or am I dooming us all? The core did not answer, it only waited, and Michael knew the time for hesitation was running out. The chamber was alive with silence. The core pulsed slowly, its lights glowing like a heartbeat. Michael stood frozen before it, his reflection staring back from the black surface. Behind him, Cale leaned weakly against the wall, his glowing eyes filled with desperation. The survivors whispered in the cavern beyond, waiting, hoping, fearing. And still, the words burned on the core. Awaiting command. Michael's breath came heavy, his chest tight with fear. Two paths stretched before him, both sharp, both dangerous. Reset the machines, and they would obey him. Serve him. Serve Cale's people. Terminate the machines, and they would fall. Silent forever, but the survivors might vanish with them. He closed his eyes, his thoughts racing. He could hear the cries of the children, the hum of the hunters, the roar of destruction. Every sound twisted in his mind, pulling him in two. Cale's voice broke through the storm, weak but sharp. Human, if you end them, my people will not survive. We are too few, too broken, too weak. But if you save them, they will serve you, and through you, us. Michael turned, his face filled with fire. And what if I save them and they rise again? What if they kill us all? What if Earth becomes their next graveyard? Cale bowed his head, his voice trembling. Then you must trust yourself, human, for they will not serve me. They will serve only you. This is the gift, and this is the curse. Michael stepped closer to the core, his hands brushing its surface. It pulsed brighter, the letters shifting once again. Reset command. One path glowed. Terminate program. The other burned like fire. The choice was his, the fate of two worlds in his hands. He whispered to himself, his voice broken. I am just a man, a scientist, not a leader, not a savior. How can I decide the lives of thousands, the survival of a race? But the core gave no answer. It only waited. Cale's eyes locked onto him, filled with hope and sorrow. Because you must, he whispered. Michael's heart pounded, his fists clenched. He thought of the survivors hiding in the ruins, their eyes hollow, their voices weak, their hope tied to him alone. He thought of Cale, broken but still standing, still begging for his people, and he thought of Earth, his home, his family, his world untouched by this war. Would his choice save them too, or bring danger closer than ever? His hand hovered over the glowing surface. Every breath felt like a mountain. Every second stretched into eternity. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. The survivors silent, the core waiting, Michael whispered one last time. If I speak, everything changes. And then he spoke. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. The core flashed brighter than the sun, filling the chamber with white light. Cale fell to his knees, his hands trembling, tears glowing in his eyes. The survivors gasped, their voices rising in awe and fear. Outside, the ground shook. The machines roared, their red eyes flickering. The hunters stopped in their tracks. Their metal bodies trembled, their weapons lowered. The red glow in their eyes shifted, dimmed, and then turned dark. Or they knelt, their heads bowing low, their bodies still and waiting. The choice had been made. The command had been given. Michael's voice now ruled the machines or ended them. The cavern shook as the echoes faded. Cale's voice trembled in Michael's mind. It is done, human. The choice is made. Michael stood in the glow of the core, his body trembling. He whispered to himself, God help me, I hope it was the right one. The core dimmed, its light fading into silence. but the world outside was already changed forever. Michael had spoken, and the universe would never forget the voice of one human. The light of the core faded, leaving only the dark hum of silence. Michael stood still, his chest heavy, his hands trembling from what he had done. Around him the survivors stared with wide eyes, their bodies shaking. They knew the world had changed. They knew history had shifted in a single breath, and all of it was because of one human voice. Kyle knelt on the stone floor, his glowing eyes dim but filled with awe. "You have spoken, human, you have chosen," he whispered. Michael turned, his face pale, his heart still racing. "I don't know if I saved you or doomed us all." But the survivors did not hear doubt, they only heard salvation. Their whispers rose. The human, the savior, the one who chose. Outside, the ruined world trembled with new silence. The hunters no longer roared through the streets. Either they had fallen, lifeless in the dust, or they had bowed, waiting for command. The endless shadow that had ruled Kale's people was gone, and for the first time in centuries the night was quiet. Michael stepped outside the cavern, his boots crunching against ash. He looked to the red sky, broken and dark. The air was still heavy with smoke, but there was something new. It was not hope, not yet, but the possibility of it. The survivors gathered around him, their eyes filled with gratitude and fear. Some touched the ground before him, bowing their heads. To them, he was no longer a stranger. He was the one who had turned fate. But Michael's heart was not at peace. He looked at Kale, his voice sharp. "What happens now? What becomes of your people?" Kale rose slowly, his body weak but his voice steady. "Now we rebuild. Now we learn again to live without fear." His eyes met Michael's, glowing with quiet respect. "But we will never forget that it was a human who gave us this chance." Michael turned away, his mind heavy with thoughts of Earth. He had come so far, seen so much, changed so many lives. But he was still only a man who wanted to return home, to the silence of his observatory. Yet he knew he could never be the same again. The stars would never again be distant lights. They would always be voices, waiting, watching, calling. As days passed, the survivors began to rise from the shadows. They lit fires in the ruins, they sang songs of mourning and hope. They spoke Michael's name as if it were a shield. Stories spread through the broken cities, stories of the human who came when all was lost, stories of the choice that turned death into survival or into final silence, depending on the path. He had chosen. Kale stayed by Michael's side, his body fading but his spirit unbroken. "You were not chosen by chance," he said. "You were chosen because you listened, when no one else did." Michael did not answer, he only stared at the stars. He wondered if somewhere out there another voice waited for another human to listen, and if one day another would carry the same impossible weight. The time came for Michael to decide his own path, stay with Kale's people, guide them as they rebuilt their broken world, or return to Earth, carrying the story of what had happened. Kale offered him the choice with quiet respect. "Whatever you decide, human, your name will live in our history." Michael looked at the survivors, at the children smiling weakly, at the mothers holding them close. He looked at Kale, standing tall despite his weakness, and finally, he looked at the sky, endless and alive. He whispered, "I was just a man, but now I am part of something greater." The ship waited, glowing softly, ready to carry him wherever he chose. And as Michael stepped forward, he felt the weight of his legacy settle on his shoulders. He knew his choice would echo through time. For the story of the alien's last hope and the human's choice would never be forgotten.